Okay, we got a 2007 Ford Expedition, and we are replacing the OEM original air suspension and putting just coilover in. So this is it. This is the driver's side. I've already done the this is the passenger side. We already did the driver's side. Here's the air shock, and basically what we're going to do here, I've already got the wheel off. I've got it supported by a couple of jack stands down there in the center. You can see the wishbone suspension here, and this little center point is the best place to put the jack stands. And because of where they are, there's hardly any pressure on that wheel, even though the e-brake's on, but I've got some little blocks in the front wheels. So we're going to take the brake caliper off, and we're going to remove this bolt here, the bottom of the shock. We're going to remove this little bar. This is the sensor for the air suspension, the leveling sensor. We're going to deal with that a little bit later. And then we're going to remove this bolt in the back, and we're going to drop this whole piece. There are some videos that try and take it out of the front. I tried both ways, and taking this stuff off is a pain, and dropping this from the back is much easier. Brake caliper with the 7mm, little 7mm hex key. You can obviously use just an Allen wrench, but it'll take all day. I like to put it on a ratchet. Okay, once you get those loose, you just slide this out. It really does just slide right out. You got to make sure these things are pulled out enough, otherwise even when they're unscrewed, they'll kind of catch the threads back here a little bit. So just slide those nuts out, or the bolts out, and this will slide right out. This brake cable is pretty stout. Just gently set down and set on the jack here. Support it for a minute. Now I'm going to go ahead and loosen this bolt here on the bottom, and there's a number of ways you can do it. Just what I've got with the most leverage is this big 15-inch Allen or crescent wrench. So I'm going to go ahead and use that. I've got this off. I'm actually going to twist this nut back on just a little bit to protect the threads while I tap this through. Now I've got most of it done. And since your screwdriver gets a little stuck, just put a little bit of pressure on the bottom of this shock with the jack. Now we're going to loosen this rear bolt here. That's a 23mm, and on this one it's kind of nice that they put a little bracket attached to the nut on the other side so it doesn't spin. And just as a side note, on some vehicles this member of this lower control arm is a part of the it's part of the alignment, but this one on this vehicle, these are not adjustable. So go ahead and take that off with a 23mm. Okay, now I'm going to take this bar off on the leveling sensor, and what you do is you just put a little screwdriver in here, and you just pull this little clip out. So now that's off on the bottom. You can twist it up on the top because the clip's on the other side. Now we've got this off. This sensor goes up and down the car's higher, this is going to be down lower. That's going to tell it to let air out. If the car's sagging, this is going to go up higher, and that's going to tell the car that it needs more air. I think we're going to be right about here. We're going to do a little bit of testing with that after we get this back together. Okay, now I've got a little 15-inch gear wrench, ratchet wrench, box end thing. I'm going to go ahead and take these top bolts off on the air shock. Okay, so once you get these nuts off the top, this just drops down. This lower control arm is already loose in the back, and it just drops really easily as well. And so now we can lift this out. And we're tethered here still by the solenoid. And the first thing you need to do is just press in this. First thing we need to do is just press this little red ring in, and it'll release the white line. And then this is just a plug. Press the clip in the back and unplug it. Now this is free, and we can put the new one in. So basically, you got to just, your considerations to keep in mind are the configuration of the lower mount here with your 3 studs on the top. So this is the way we're going to want to do it. We got the 2 when we took them off. There's 2 on the outside and 1 in the back. And if it's lined up, so this is straight, that's the right way. And another note is that this top flange is at an angle based on the way that the spring is underneath it. So when you go to put it up in here, this isn't going to quite match the angle that this top mount is on until you put pressure on the shock, and then it'll tighten up on top. So don't worry about that when you're putting it in. It's going to be a little bit different. So I'm just going to go ahead and put it in. Slide it down in the hole here in the lower control arm, and then come right back up. Line these up, and then I strongly suggest to tighten these last all the way. I'm just going to put a couple on here to hold it in place while I put the bottom back together, because that will allow me to move it around. So the next thing I'm going to do is put the stud back on, or the bolt back on in the bottom. One thing that's handy is to just use your jack to kind of lift the lower control arm up, hold it in place while you get this bolt in down underneath. Makes it a lot easier. And I'm just going to leave that nut off for now. Jack here on the back of this control arm to lift it up so I can get this other bolt back in. And it works a lot better to lift it in the back here. And then down here at this point, the angle goes in wrong. If you lift it up here, the angle's much better. And you gotta, just the angle for the hole is what I mean. And then you can use your ratchet to crank it in from here. And then this is the little nut with the bracket on it in the back. This will just slide over. There's just a little hole that this thing slides into in the back. And it's easy to get in there even without looking. Now I'm just going to put this bolt on down below. This is a 27 mil. But I actually used, again, I just used my crescent wrench in the front. Taking this one off takes a lot of muscle, so even my breaker bar wasn't as big as this thing. You do need to be careful when you're using this, a crescent wrench, to take this off. Make sure that you got it tightened down well on the nut so you don't slip, because if you ruin that nut, you're never getting this job done. So I would not use a small crescent wrench for this. If you don't have a big one like this, don't even try it. Okay, I'll just put the brakes back in. And you want to make sure you're not touching in here, and make sure you didn't get any grease on your rotor, otherwise you're gonna be going a little too fast down your hill next time you try that. And then make sure that your brake line's not twisted. You see, I just tried putting it on and it was at the wrong angle. So you want to make sure that your front brake pad is pressed back enough, and then it needs to go, the top needs to go in. Make sure this little piece is on the inside of this flange, and then your brake pad itself is on the outside, and then it'll rock into the bottom. And then again, you're just going to use the 7mm to tighten it back up. Okay, now in order to get these top nuts snug down on the top of the shock, we got to just put some pressure on this lower control arm. You can see how it's lifting it up. Now I've got those up as high as they need to be. And again, using the 15mm ratchet, we're just going to tighten these down. Oh, actually, we're going to do the rear one first. Okay, so I got these tightened up top. Got everything tightened down below. This is tightened, the one in the back. I've removed the rod on the sensor and replaced the brake assembly. Now we're gonna come over here, because we don't want to have a bunch of error codes in the vehicle. Since we've taken the air suspension off, we want to set the sensors down underneath so it thinks it's in the right spot. And we're also going to reconnect the solenoids. And this one, you just grab a screwdriver, peel this. Use a smaller one here. Peel this little clip off. That's going to allow this to twist. And when I twist, it's going to let some air out. And that's it. So here's my solenoid. And I'm going to go ahead and take this little rubber O-ring off, because we don't need that to fall in the street. So we're going to connect the air and the power back to it. And the air, all we do is just simply press it firmly into the hole. And the same thing with the power. And then all I'm going to do is just zip tie this up to the air line here. This will keep it from rattling on the road and protect it a little bit. So I'm going to put one zip tie up top and another one just down here on the bottom. Kind of tighten the airline and the wiring up a little bit. And again, we're just putting these back on so that the car thinks that the air suspension is still properly functioning. Okay, so this is basically complete. Now what we're going to do is, once I get the truck down on the ground, going to start it. As you know, you start it, you shut your doors. Once your doors are shut and the engine's running, it will check the level and it'll pump. If the pump is running, that means this is up too high. And that should be, if it's too low, that thinks that the truck thinks that the suspension's too high, and it will tell the solenoid to release air. Now I'm not sure, but I think that if it's trying to release air and it doesn't change in height, it may throw an error. But again, like I said, I'm just going to drop it on the ground, and I'm going to start the truck and just move this until it's in the right place, and then leave it. Okay, I did get a little error message. I had them down a little too low. I had them down about here, and the car thought it was too high. So what I've done is I'm just grabbing this little rod and just attaching it here, and these basically just need to be vertical. So I just set them both there. I've done this one over here already. So basically the sensor arm will be just basically sticking out to the side, and that should do it. And you can see I've got the standard coilover. We're on the ground. There are the new shocks, and we've successfully converted to coilover from air suspension. Thanks for watching.